Commander Vrixthil stepped off the transport ship and felt the heavy pull of Earth's gravity immediately. The planet was denser than his homeworld, and the air felt thick in his breathing slits. He stretched his forearms and looked around at the landing platform with careful eyes. Fort Horizon Military Academy spread out before him like a small city. Gray buildings rose against a backdrop of snow-covered mountains. Young humans in matching uniforms moved between structures in neat groups. Everything looked organized and clean, but Vrixthil felt something strange in the air. Something he could not name. The Galactic Council had sent him here for one purpose. Humanity had expanded too quickly across 3-star systems in just 50 years. They had built colonies, trade routes, and military outposts faster than any species in recorded history. The Council wanted to know if humans were a threat. Vrixthil was their best military strategist, and his job was to find out. A human female approached him with steady steps. She wore a dark uniform covered in small metal symbols that Vrixthil assumed showed her rank. Her hair was gray, cut short, and her face showed the lines of age. But her eyes were sharp and alert. "Commander Vrixthil," she said, extending one hand. "I am General Laura Patterson, Superintendent of this academy. Welcome to Earth." Vrixthil touched her hand briefly, as he had learned was their custom. Her grip was firm, and he noticed the roughness of her skin. Working hands, he thought. Not the soft hands of a leader who stayed behind desks. "Thank you, General Patterson," he replied through his translator device. "The Galactic Council appreciates your willingness to allow this visit." Patterson smiled, but the expression did not reach her eyes. "We have nothing to hide, Commander. Our academy is open to you. Ask any question. Go anywhere you wish. We believe in transparency." This surprised Vrixthil. Most species protected their military secrets carefully. Either humans were foolish, or they were so confident in their power that they did not fear observation. He was not sure which possibility worried him more. "Shall we begin the tour?" Patterson asked. They walked along a wide path between training buildings. Vrixthil observed everything with trained eyes. He counted the number of cadets, estimated the size of the facilities, and noted the types of equipment visible through windows. So far, nothing seemed remarkable. The technology appeared basic compared to Kelthori standards. "How many students train here?" he asked. "About 4,000 at any time," Patterson answered. "This is one of 12 major academies on Earth alone. We have others on Luna, Mars, and the colony worlds." Vrixthil did quick calculations in his head. The numbers were larger than he expected, but still manageable. His people could field similar forces if needed. They passed a large open field where a group of young humans ran information. They wore heavy packs on their backs and moved at a steady pace despite the cold wind. Vrixthil stopped to watch them. "What is their age?" he asked. "These are first-year cadets. Most are 18 or 19 Earth years old." Vrixthil felt his neck frills rise in surprise. 18 years? They are children. Patterson looked at him with a curious expression. By our law, they are adults. Old enough to vote, sign contracts, and serve in the military. "My people do not begin military training until age 40, Vrixthil said. "Before that, the mind is not mature enough for the stress of combat preparation." "Humans mature faster, I suppose," Patterson said. Her tone was casual, but Vrixthil sensed something beneath her words. "Besides, starting young allows more years of service. More time to learn." The running cadets completed their circuit of the field and immediately began another without stopping. Their breath formed clouds in the cold air, and sweat dripped down their faces despite the low temperature. Some of them stumbled but kept moving. None of them stopped. "How long have they been running?" Vrixthil asked. "About 2 hours now. This is their morning warm-up before breakfast." "Warm-up?" Vrixthil repeated. This is preparation for the actual training? Correct. We find that physical conditioning early in the day sharpens the mind for classroom instruction later. Rixthil watched a young male cadet fall to his knees, gasping for air. Two of his companions grabbed his arms and pulled him up, forcing him to continue. The fallen cadet did not protest. He simply started running again, his face twisted with effort. Do they not rest when they are exhausted? Rixthil asked. Rest comes when the task is complete, Patterson said. That is one of the first lessons we teach here. Your body will tell you to stop long before you have reached your true limits. Learning to push past that voice is essential for survival. She said this the same way someone might discuss the weather, as if teaching young people to ignore their own pain was perfectly normal. Rixthale made a note in his recording device. They continued walking, and Patterson led him to a smaller building near the edge of the campus. This is our medical facility, she said. Would you like to see it? Inside, Rixthale found rows of beds and advanced healing equipment. Several cadets lay recovering from various injuries. One had a leg wrapped in a regeneration cast. Another had bandages across his face and chest. A third was unconscious, connected to several monitoring machines. Training injuries? Rixthal asked. Yes, broken bones, torn muscles, concussions. The usual, Rixthal repeated softly. Patterson walked among the beds, checking on each patient with what appeared to be genuine concern. She stopped beside the unconscious cadet and studied his readings. Cadet Morrison pushed too hard during climbing exercises, she explained. He fell 30 meters but managed to slow his descent enough to survive. He will recover fully in a few weeks, and then he will return to training. Patterson looked at Rixthal with steady eyes. He has already asked when he can go back. He's angry at himself for falling. Rixthal stared at the young human in the bed. 30 meters. On most worlds, such a fall would mean death. This child had survived through sheer will and was now upset that he had made a mistake. Tomorrow, Patterson said as they left the medical building, I would like to show you our basic combat training. I think you will find it educational. Rixthal nodded, but his mind was racing. He had come here expecting to find a primitive species playing at war. Instead, he was beginning to see something else. Something that made his scales prickle with an emotion he rarely felt. Fear. And the tour had only just begun. Rixthal did not sleep well that night. The quarters they gave him were comfortable, but his mind kept returning to the images from the medical building. Young humans barely mature, lying broken and healing so they could return to break themselves again. It made no sense to him. The next morning, General Patterson met him at the entrance to a large outdoor arena. The air was colder than the day before, and frost covered the ground. Despite this, dozens of cadets stood in the arena wearing thin training clothes. They did not shiver or complain. They simply waited. This is our hand-to-hand combat facility, Patterson said. Sergeant Kevin Rhodes runs the program. A large human male approached them. He was shorter than Patterson, but twice as wide, with muscles that strained against his uniform. A long scar ran from his forehead to his chin, crossing over a missing eye. The remaining eye studied Rixthal with cold interest. Commander, Rhodes said. His voice was rough, like stones grinding together. Welcome to my playground. Sergeant Rhodes is a veteran of the Titan Uprising, Patterson explained. He received his injuries, saving his entire squad from an ambush. I was slow, Rhodes said. Learn my lesson. Now I make sure these kids learn faster than I did. He turned and walked into the arena. Patterson and Rixthal followed, stopping at the edge of a marked circle on the ground. The cadets formed two lines facing each other. Today is sparring day, Rhodes announced to the cadets. Full contact. Medical teams are standing by. Do not hold back. Your enemy will not hold back, so neither will you. He looked at Vrixthel. Commander, please observe. This is how we prepare warriors. The first pair of cadets stepped into the circle. One was a tall male with broad shoulders. The other was a smaller female with dark hair pulled back tight. Vrixthel expected some ritual or formal beginning. Instead, Rhodes simply said, "Begin." The fight that followed shocked Vrixthel to his core. These were not practice movements or careful demonstrations. The two cadets attacked each other with real violence. Fists connected with faces. Kicks struck ribs with audible cracks. Blood appeared on both fighters within seconds. The female cadet moved faster than her opponent. She dodged his heavy strikes and responded with precise hits to his joints and soft areas. When he grabbed her arm, she twisted her body in a way that should have been impossible and broke free, taking two of his fingers with her. The male cadet screamed but did not stop fighting. He came at her again with his injured hand hanging useless. She swept his legs and brought him down hard, then locked her arm around his neck until he slapped the ground 3 times to signal defeat. Rhodes nodded. Adequate. Torres, report to medical for that cut on your head. Davidson, get those fingers set and return for the next round. The next round? Vrixthel said. He has broken bones. He has 9 other fingers, Rhodes replied. And he needs to learn to fight through pain. Vrixthel watched the male cadet walk toward the medical tent at the edge of the arena. He held his damaged hand against his chest, but his face showed determination, not defeat. As if this was normal. As if breaking bones during morning training was simply part of the routine. You train by actually harming each other, Vrixthel said. Is this not wasteful? Surely simulation technology would be safer. Patterson shook her head. Simulations cannot teach the reality of pain. When a soldier faces death for the first time, they cannot afford to hesitate because they have never truly been hurt. Our cadets learn to function through injury, fear, and exhaustion here, where failure means a trip to the medical bay instead of a grave. The next pair entered the circle. Then the next. Vrixthel watched fight after fight, each one brutal and bloody. The medical teams worked constantly, treating wounds, resetting joints, and sending cadets back into rotation. Some fought 3 or 4 times in a single morning. After the sparring ended, Patterson led him to another part of the facility. Here, the ground dropped away into a vast natural canyon. Ropes and cables stretched across the gap, and platforms hung at various heights over a drop of at least 200 meters. Survival training, Patterson explained. Cadets are dropped into hostile environments with minimal supplies. They must navigate back to base within a set time limit. Vrixthel looked at the canyon. Wind howled through the gap, and ice covered the rocks below. How minimal are the supplies? 1 knife, 1 water container, the clothes they are wearing. And if they cannot complete the course? Patterson's expression did not change. Then they do not graduate. Some drop out. Some are injured too badly to continue. She paused. Some die. The words hung in the cold air. Vrixthel stared at her, waiting for some indication that she was joking or exaggerating. None came. You allow your students to die during training? We do not allow it, Patterson said. But we accept that it happens. A soldier who cannot survive training will not survive war. Better to learn that truth here than on a battlefield where their failure could cost the lives of others. Vrixthel thought of the academies on his homeworld. Safety was the highest priority. Cadets were protected, guided, carefully developed over decades. The idea of deliberately placing students in deadly situations was unthinkable. What is your completion rate? He asked. Roughly 40% make it through the full program. 40%. Vrixthel repeated the number slowly. You lose 60% of your candidates. We filter out 60%, Patterson corrected. The ones who remain are the ones we need. Every soldier who graduates from this academy can survive conditions that would kill most beings in the galaxy. They can fight injured, think while exhausted, and function when everything around them is falling apart. She looked at the canyon. That is not something you can teach in a comfortable classroom. Rixdale made more notes in his recording device, but his hands were not steady. He had evaluated military programs across 30 species. He had never seen anything like this. The Kelthari trained their soldiers to be precise, efficient, and safe. Humans trained their soldiers to be unbreakable. Shall we continue to the weapons division? Patterson asked. I think you will find our research facilities interesting. Rick still nodded, though part of him wanted to return to his ship and leave this world behind. Whatever he had expected to find on Earth, it was not this. These humans treated violence and death as teachers. They broke their own children to make them stronger. And somehow, Rick still knew the worst was yet to come. Yes, he said. Show me your weapons. Patterson smiled that same smile that never reached her eyes. With pleasure, Commander. The Weapons Research Center sat apart from the main academy, surrounded by 3 layers of security fencing. Guard towers watched over every approach, and Rick still noticed that the soldiers here were not cadets. These were experienced warriors with hard eyes and steady hands. Patterson passed through each checkpoint with a wave, and the guards let Rick still follow without question. Inside, the building stretched deep underground. They took an elevator down 7 levels before the doors opened into a wide corridor lined with reinforced glass windows. Commander. This is Dr. Nathan Cole, Patterson said, introducing a thin human male with wild gray hair and thick glasses. He leads our historical weapons archive. Cole's face lit up with genuine excitement. Commander Vrixthal, wonderful to meet you. I have been looking forward to this all week. Please, follow me. I have so much to show you. Unlike Patterson's calm control, Cole vibrated with energy. He walked quickly, talking constantly, pointing at displays behind the glass windows. His enthusiasm was almost childlike, which made what he was showing them even more disturbing. We believe in preserving our military history, Cole explained. Every weapon humanity has ever created is documented here. Let us start at the beginning. The first displays showed primitive tools. Rocks shaped for killing. Wooden spears. Bows and arrows. Rick still nodded. All species had such beginnings, but the displays changed quickly. Swords became more complex. Armor evolved. Then came weapons that launched metal projectiles using explosive powder. Cole explained each development with loving detail, describing how humans had constantly improved their ability to kill each other. Here we have the machine gun, Cole said, stopping at a large display. One of our most important inventions. Before this, soldiers had to aim carefully and fire one shot at a time. This weapon allowed a single soldier to kill hundreds in minutes. It changed everything. Rick Steele studied the old metal device. It looked crude compared to modern technology, but the idea behind it was clear. Quantity over precision. Overwhelming violence. They moved deeper into the facility. The weapons grew more terrible with each room. Cole showed him chemical agents that burned flesh and lungs. Biological weapons that could spread disease across entire continents. Bombs that released heat hotter than stars. Ah, and here, Cole said, stopping at a massive vault door, is our nuclear collection. The door slid open to reveal a room filled with displays of bomb casings, technical documents, and recorded footage. Cole played a video on a large screen. Rixdale watched as a single weapon turned an entire city into ash and fire in less than a second. This was used in actual combat, Cole said. Twice. The only time nuclear weapons have been deployed against population centers. Approximately 200,000 humans died in those two attacks. Rix, though, felt sick. And this ended the war? It did. But here's the interesting part. Cole switched to another display showing thousands of similar weapons. After seeing what these bombs could do, humanity did not stop making them. We made more. Many more. At our peak, we had enough nuclear weapons to destroy all life on Earth multiple times over. Why? Rixthal asked. Why would you create weapons that could end your own species? Cole adjusted his glasses and smiled. It is called mutually assured destruction. If both sides in a conflict have enough weapons to completely destroy the other, then neither side will attack first. Fear prevents war. But accidents, mistakes, miscalculations, all possible. We came close several times. Once, a single officer refused to launch a retaliatory strike, even though his instruments showed incoming weapons. It turned out to be a false alarm. If he had followed protocol, both sides would have fired everything. The planet would have burned. Rixthal could not find words. These beings had created weapons capable of total extinction and then relied on individual judgment to prevent their use. It was madness. Complete madness. Lieutenant Amy Chun joined them as they left the historical section. She was young, with sharp eyes and quick movements. Her uniform showed technical insignia that Rixthal did not recognize. Lieutenant Chun handles our current tactical systems, Patterson explained. She can show you what we have developed since those early days. Chun led them to a modern laboratory filled with glowing screens and hovering projections. Small drones flew in demonstration patterns. Robotic systems performed combat simulations against holographic enemies. Our focus now is on precision, Chun explained. These autonomous units can identify and eliminate targets with minimal collateral damage. One drone can replace a squad of soldiers for certain missions. This seems more reasonable, Rixthal said, relieved to see something that resembled normal military technology. Oh, these are just our humane options, Chun said, for situations where we want to avoid unnecessary death. When that is not a concern, we have other tools. She pulled up a new display. The weapon shown looked like a simple satellite, but the technical specifications made Rixthal's breath stop. It was an orbital bombardment platform capable of accelerating metal rods to a fraction of light speed. A single strike could destroy a city with no radiation, no warning, and no defense. We call them rods from God, Chun said. Simple physics. No fancy technology required. Just mass and velocity. Even species with advanced shields have trouble stopping something moving that fast. Rixthal compared the specifications to Kelthari defense systems. Chun was right. Their shields were designed to stop energy weapons and standard projectiles. Something this fast and dense would pass through like it was not there. How many of these do you have? Chun glanced at Patterson, who nodded slightly. Enough, Chun said. Let us leave it at that. They returned to the surface as evening approached. Rixthal had seen things that would haunt him for years. Weapons designed to burn, poison, infect, and obliterate. Centuries of innovation focused on one goal, killing more efficiently. I have a question, Rixthal said, as they walked toward the guest quarters. Your species clearly excels at creating weapons. But the Galactic Council has observed that humans prefer trade and diplomacy over conflict. Why develop such terrible tools if you do not wish to use them? Patterson stopped and turned to face him. The setting sun painted her face in orange and red light, making her look older, harder. Commander, there is an old human saying, if you want peace, prepare for war. We do not want to fight. We truly do not. Our people are tired of blood. We have spilled enough of it among ourselves to last forever. She paused. But we also know that the galaxy is not kind. There are species out there who see our kindness as weakness, our preference for peace as an invitation to conquest. She stepped closer, and Rixthal resisted the urge to step back. So we prepare. We build weapons that make our enemies afraid to attack. We train soldiers who cannot be broken, and we hope that we never have to use any of it. Her eyes held his. We hope very much, Commander, because if we are ever forced to truly fight, we will not stop until the threat is completely gone. Not defeated, not surrendered, gone. Rixthal understood. The message was clear. Humanity wanted peace, but they were ready for war. More than ready. They had spent their entire existence preparing for it. Tomorrow, Patterson said, returning to her normal calm tone, we have a combat simulation scheduled. I think you should see how all of this comes together. How our soldiers actually fight. Rixthal nodded. He was not sure he wanted to see any more, but he had a duty to complete his assessment. I will be there, he said. Patterson smiled. Excellent. Get some rest, Commander. You will need it. The simulation facility covered several square kilometers of forest, mountains, and artificial urban zones. Rixthal stood in a command tower overlooking the entire area, surrounded by screens and holographic displays that tracked every movement below. Captain Marcus Webb stood beside him, a compact human with graying temples and calm, steady hands. He commanded the simulation exercises and had been doing so for 15 years. His voice never rose above a quiet conversational tone, even when giving orders that sent hundreds of soldiers into battle. Today's scenario is simple, Webb explained. 2 companies of cadets. Red team defends a strategic position. Blue team attacks. Victory conditions are clear. Hold the objective or take it. What are the stakes? Rixthal asked. Graduation placement. The winning team earns first choice of assignments. The losing team gets whatever remains. Webb smiled slightly. Young soldiers care very much about their futures. This makes them fight harder than any artificial reward could. The simulation began at dawn. Rixthal watched Blue Team advance through the forest in careful formations. They used cover well, communicated with hand signals, and moved with trained precision. Red Team had fortified their position in a small cluster of buildings at the center of the combat zone. Blue Team has superior numbers, Webb said. 300 attackers against 200 defenders. Standard doctrine says they need 3-to-1 advantage to guarantee victory against a fortified position. They are close. The first engagement happened at the forest edge. Blue Team soldiers triggered hidden sensors, and Red Team defenders opened fire from concealed positions. The weapons were not lethal, but they fired marking rounds that hurt and tracked hits accurately. Soldiers who took fatal shots were marked as killed and had to leave the field. Blue Team lost 40 soldiers in the first 5 minutes. They pulled back, regrouped, and tried a different approach. Red Team shifted defenders to meet them. The battle became a complex dance of movement and counter-movement. Rixthal watched with professional interest. The tactics were sound, the execution clean. Both sides fought well, but something was missing. The battle felt like a contest, not a war. That changed 3 hours in. Blue Team made a strong push through the eastern buildings and managed to cut off a squad of Red Team defenders. 20 soldiers under a cadet named Tyler Brooks found themselves surrounded, outnumbered, and running low on ammunition. Interesting, Webb said, leaning forward. Let us see what young Brooks does. Rixthal expected retreat. Standard military doctrine in such situations was clear. When surrounded and outgunned, a unit should attempt to break out and rejoin friendly forces. Staying in place meant certain defeat. Brooks did not retreat. Instead, he gathered his squad in the basement of a damaged building and began organizing a defense. They blocked doors with furniture, created firing positions at windows, and rationed their remaining ammunition carefully. When Blue Team demanded their surrender, Brooks responded with a simple phrase that made Webb laugh. What did he say? Rickstill asked. An old Earth expression, Webb said. Roughly translated, he suggested they do something anatomically impossible to themselves. Blue Team attacked. Brooks and his squad held. They fought with desperate efficiency, making every shot count. When ammunition ran low, they switched to close combat. When soldiers fell, the survivors took their weapons and kept fighting. The battle around the cut-off squad continued for 6 hours. Rickstill watched in growing disbelief as these young humans refused to give up, despite impossible odds. By evening, Brooks had lost 16 of his 20 soldiers. The 4 remaining defenders were injured, exhausted, and nearly out of ammunition, and still they would not surrender. This is inefficient, Rickstill said. They have already lost. Continuing serves no purpose. They were ordered to hold that position, Webb replied. They are holding. But why? What do they gain by dying for ground that is already lost? Webb turned to look at him. Commander, you are thinking like a Kelthari. Your people fight with logic, numbers, calculated advantages. When the math says retreat, you retreat. He turned back to the screens. Humans do not always fight that way. We have a concept called the last stand. When soldiers decide that some things are worth dying for, they stop calculating odds. They simply fight until they cannot fight anymore. But this is just a simulation, a training exercise. Yes, and these cadets are showing us what they will do when it matters for real. That is the point. Red Team reinforcements finally reached Brooks and his survivors as darkness fell. Blue Team, frustrated by hours of delay, had been unable to take the main objective. The simulation ended with Red Team holding their ground. Brooks emerged from the building, carried by his remaining squad members. He was barely conscious, marked with hits that would have been fatal wounds in real combat. But he was smiling. Webb descended from the command tower to meet the cadets. Rickstill followed, wanting to understand what he had witnessed. Cadet Brooks, Webb said, your position was cut off. You were outnumbered and outgunned. Why did you not attempt to break out? Brooks stood at attention despite his exhaustion. Sir, my orders were to hold the eastern sector. I held it. You lost 80% of your squad. Yes, sir. But we held. Webb was silent for a moment. Then he nodded. Well done, Cadet. Later that night, Rickstill requested a meeting with General Patterson. She received him in her office, a simple room with few decorations except for photographs of previous graduating classes. I wish to conclude my assessment early, Rickstill said. I have seen enough. Patterson raised an eyebrow. You still have 3 days of scheduled observation. I do not need them. Rickstill's voice was not steady. He did not care. General, I have studied military forces across the galaxy. I have seen advanced technology, superior numbers, strategic genius. But I have never seen anything like what your species has shown me. And what have we shown you, Commander? Rickstill thought of the cadets running through pain. The fighters breaking each other in training, the weapons designed to end worlds, and the young soldier who chose certain death over retreat because he was told to hold. You have shown me that humanity does not fight to win, he said. You fight to destroy, to endure, to never, ever stop until the enemy is completely broken or you are dead. Your people train for suffering. Your weapons are built for extinction. And your soldiers will die for abstract concepts like duty and honor without hesitation. Patterson listened without expression. My people, Rickstill continued, we fight when we must and make peace when we can. We calculate costs and benefits. We retreat when losing to preserve our forces. We are rational. He paused. You are not rational. And that makes you the most dangerous species I've ever encountered. Patterson was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood and walked to the window, looking out at the Academy grounds below. We hope you find what you are looking for, Commander, she said softly. And we hope you never give us a reason to come looking for you. Rixthal left Earth the next morning. He had his assessment. Now he had to deliver it. He was not sure the Council was ready to hear it. The High Council chamber of the Galactic Alliance filled slowly as representatives from 12 species took their assigned positions. Holographic displays floated above each delegation, showing their homeworlds and flags. The room hummed with quiet conversation in dozens of languages. Rixthal stood at the central platform, waiting. He had spent the entire journey home preparing his report. He had checked his data, reviewed his recordings, and organized his findings into clear categories. But every time he looked at his notes, his hands trembled slightly. High Chancellor Morinth of the Veluxi called the session to order. She was ancient, even by her species' standards, with crystalline skin that caught the chamber lights like fractured ice. Commander Rixthal, she said, her voice resonating through translation systems. You were sent to assess the military capabilities of the human species. The Council awaits your findings. Rixthal activated his display. Images from Fort Horizon appeared above the chamber, showing the Academy, the training grounds, and the weapons facilities. Honored representatives, he began. I will present my assessment directly and without softening. What I witnessed on Earth has changed my understanding of what a species can be. The chamber fell silent. Rixthal had never been known for dramatic statements. His reputation was built on calm, precise analysis. Let me begin with basic facts. Human military training starts at age 18, when their bodies are barely mature. They continue developing physically and mentally well into their third decade of life. Yet they are sent into training programs designed to break them. He showed footage of the morning runs, the sparring sessions, the survival courses. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably as they watched cadets fighting with real violence, bleeding, breaking bones, and returning to fight again. Their training philosophy is simple. Pain teaches survival. They believe that soldiers who've never suffered will fail when suffering comes. So they make suffering part of everyday existence. Rixthal paused. The washout rate at their academies exceeds 60%. Some candidates die during training. This is considered acceptable. A murmur ran through the chamber. The Trellian delegate, a being of pure energy, flickered with what might have been disbelief. They kill their own soldiers before combat? They call it filtering, Rixthal said. The weak are removed so the strong can be strengthened further. He moved to his next section. Images of weapons filled the display. Chemical agents, biological weapons, nuclear bombs, orbital bombardment platforms. Humans have been developing weapons of war for their entire recorded history. They have only known approximately 200 years of total peace across their entire civilization. The rest of their existence has been spent fighting each other. He showed the footage of nuclear explosions. The chamber grew very quiet. They created weapons capable of destroying all life on their own planet. Then they built more. At their peak, they had enough destructive power to render their world uninhabitable several times over. They pointed these weapons at each other and used the threat of total extinction to maintain peace. Madness, said the Corinthian delegate, a massive being with 4 arms and thick armored skin. No rational species would risk its own destruction. I agree, Rixthal said. And that is precisely my point. Humans are not entirely rational when it comes to war. They have demonstrated repeatedly that they will accept their own destruction if it means destroying their enemy as well. He shifted to his final section. The simulation footage played, showing Cadet Brooks and his squad holding their position against impossible odds. This is perhaps the most important observation. When humans decide to fight, they do not stop. They do not calculate costs. They do not retreat when the math turns against them. They will die for concepts like duty, honor, and loyalty to their companions. They consider this admirable rather than wasteful. The footage showed Brooks being carried out of the building, wounded but smiling. I asked a human officer why his soldiers would not surrender when defeat was certain. He told me that humans have a concept called the last stand. When they believe something is worth dying for, they stop caring about survival. They simply fight until they cannot fight anymore. Rick Steele turned off the display and faced the council directly. My assessment is this: humanity is not preparing for war. They are war. It is their natural state. They have been fighting since they developed tools, and they have only grown better at it with each generation. Their soldiers are trained to endure unimaginable pain. Their weapons are designed for total destruction, and their psychology makes them willing to accept any cost to achieve victory. He took a breath. If the Council is considering any action against humanity, I strongly recommend we abandon those plans immediately. Not because we would necessarily lose. With our combined forces, we might win. But the cost would be beyond anything we have ever experienced. Humans will not surrender. They will not negotiate from weakness. They will fight until either they are completely destroyed or we are. The chamber was silent. Rick still could see the effect of his words on each delegation. Fear, disbelief, calculation. High Chancellor Morinth spoke slowly. What do you recommend, Commander? Rick still had prepared for this question. He had thought about it during every hour of his journey home. Diplomacy, he said. Immediate, sincere, and generous diplomacy. Humanity prefers peace. They are tired of war. Their history of conflict has made them value stability and cooperation. If we approach them as potential allies rather than threats, I believe they will welcome us. He paused, remembering Patterson's words. But if we give them a reason to see us as enemies, they will respond accordingly. And once they start, they will not stop until the threat is gone. Not defeated, not contained, gone. The session continued for several hours. Delegates asked questions, debated implications, and argued among themselves. But Rick still noticed something important. Nobody suggested military action. Nobody proposed containment or preemptive strikes. His message had reached them. As the session closed, High Chancellor Morinth made an announcement. The Council will form a diplomatic delegation to approach humanity with offers of formal alliance and trade agreements. Commander Vriksthal, your assessment will be classified at the highest level. The details you have shared today will not be made public. Rick still understood. The Council did not want other species to know how frightened they were. But fear, in this case, might lead to wisdom. 3 weeks later, Rick still received notification that the Galactic Council had transmitted a request for a peace summit to Earth. 2 days after that, humanity accepted. He was sitting in his quarters when the news arrived. Relief washed through him, followed by something else. Respect, perhaps, for a species that could have conquered the galaxy through force, but chose to reach for peace instead. On Earth, General Patterson received the notification in her office. She read it twice, then smiled. A real smile this time, one that reached her eyes. She pressed a button on her desk. Sergeant Rhodes, please report to my office. A few minutes later, Rhodes entered, still wearing training gear and smelling of sweat and effort. General? Patterson turned her screen so he could see the message. The Galactic Council has requested a peace summit. They want to discuss formal alliance. Rhodes read the message, then looked at Patterson with his one good eye. That was fast. Commander Scaleface must have written quite a report. I imagine he did. Patterson leaned back in her chair. I told you the tour would work. Rhodes grunted. You also told me not to scare him too badly during combat training. And did you follow that instruction? I kept it professional. Rhodes almost smiled. Not my fault if professional scared him anyway. Patterson laughed. It was a rare sound, and Rhodes appreciated it. They had both served long enough to know what war really meant. They had both lost friends, made hard choices, lived with the weight of violence. Neither of them wanted to fight again unless absolutely necessary. So what now? Rhodes asked. Patterson looked out her window at the academy below. Cadets moved between buildings, training, learning, preparing for a future that might now be peaceful. Now we send diplomats instead of soldiers, she said. We make allies instead of enemies. We show the galaxy that humanity can be its greatest friend. She paused. And we keep training, just in case anyone forgets why they wanted to be our friend in the first place. Rhodes nodded. That was the human way. Hope for the best. Prepare for the worst. And never let your guard down completely. Somewhere out among the stars, Rixthil was probably still having nightmares about what he had seen. But those nightmares might just have saved millions of lives on both sides. That was the paradox of humanity. The most violent species in the galaxy was also the most desperate for peace. And in a universe full of danger, that combination might just be exactly what everyone needed. The tour had worked. The fear had worked. And now, perhaps the peace could work too. Only time would tell.